we believe that we can only hit 11 million if our power and authority is distributed throughout a massive network and not concentrated in a triangle. So after I worked with the Fight for 15, I built digital organizing pathways for large unions like SEIU, California. And I knew that we couldn't rely on one person to call everyone or even email everyone for a meeting. So that's why our calendar is like linked in a calendar. So anyone can just go to the calendar and attend a meeting without us having to tell them. That's why, our partners are all listed. That's also why we, like, after you sign a strike card now, there's links to join your regional chapter on Discord. So we just want the website to be as functional as possible as like getting people actually organized.
Eliza, you've been doing this for a while. I don't know how well you know Jen, but she did run for Congress a couple of times down here in South Florida against the devil herself. And, one of the problems with, a lot of what I see is more of the union leadership and not necessarily the union rank and file. The union rank and file, as was proven during the Bernie versus Hillary run a decade ago, is that when the rank and file has the say in how the endorsement goes, they vote for the right candidate. When they have just the board vote or the shareholders vote, we know how that goes. And so what has been your personal experience dealing with this? Because one of the more, what I would consider prolific, I guess might be the right word, of unions here in South Florida, the iron workers, they actually stepped out of line and they endorsed Jen against Wasserman Schultz back in 20. And let me tell you, the head of the AFL-CIO, Dan Reynolds, who's been like this with Wasserman Schultz for 25 years, he brought the hammer down, not just on them, but every union in town, and basically told them, you get out of line, you're going to feel it in a really bad way. And so I think a lot of labor unions out there want to be involved in the general strike. I think they feel that it's time that we have to make this very forceful stand. But I also think there's a lot of union leaders out there that are more concerned about their career and what it would mean to actually take this leap of faith right now. What are your thoughts on that? And what has been, without naming any names, what's been the overall reception trying to, build that coalition through the labor unions as it stands right now?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, my passion is in labor organizing. Everything I learned was from, working at SCIU. But sometimes, our union leadership, they break our heart, right? And we can't sit around and wait for, a union president to finally say it's time for a general strike. So what we have seen across the country is locals and even sublocals are getting together and deciding, okay, we support a general strike as soon as possible. So we listed our first local on our website a few months back. It's SEIU Local 503, Sublocal 581. I think they represent workers in Oregon, I believe. But yeah, they were like, we want a general strike. We're not going to sit around and wait for SEIU to agree. So that's what we need to do. Is the rank and file are stepping up, and yeah, that's how change is made everywhere, and unions are no different. We can't sit around and wait for 2028. We work closely with, Chris Smalls and the Amazon Labor Union, and, we need a general strike now. So
yes.
Well, today, I'm sure you're aware, some of your fellow brethren, we have always felt, including shout out to a really great local organizer in South Florida, Carolina Impudia. She is a former member of the SCIU. They represent the labor of the labor force, people that, clean buildings. It's basically people who do jobs that don't get enough respect. And I think it goes without saying that when you need to get people out in the streets. The SEIU has done, at least compared to any other large union, they've really done an awesome job. And so in LA County today, this is what was going on. Quite a few people got out in the streets.
5,000 LA County union workers are on strike. Right now, you're looking at a rally of some of those workers in downtown LA, and it is quite the sight.
They're slowly moving southbound on Grand, and it's really difficult
what are they wearing?
Exactly how many people are here, but it's in the thousands.
Your favorite color. Your favorite color.
Because for some reason, the way it looks, and I know it's just the shading of this, to me, it looks like a sea of Hasidic Jews. It looks like the black. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I can't.
Yeah, this like hits really close to home too, because I was an organizer in Los Angeles, right out of college, and just being out there with SEIU when we passed $15 an hour in the state of California. And yeah, like unions they're the only institution we have in this country that has the goal of checking capitalism. And the unions are all we have. I personally feel like a lot of structures in society, like, once power and political influence are involved, obviously, like, what is it? The snake rots from the head or whatever. Like, yeah, there's, shit happens, but like unions are what we have.
They're the best defense we have. They're the best defense we have.
Mm-hmm.
Have to keep growing them.
That is for sure. As we open up out of the shot just a bit, you're going to see just how long this stretches around Grand on to Temple, next to the Board of Supervisors headquarters there.
We have been seeing all of these strikers coming in by the thousands. They've been being bussed in all morning long. The rally here in high gear. They've been putting together signs showing their distaste for the county's treatment of employees. They're striking for better wages and benefits. They say they want to be respected for the work that runs the city. The strike will last 48 hours, disrupting service to non-urgent care clinics, fire debris removal, trash service, and public parks, facilities, as well as libraries.
That pleases me. That pleases me.
Local.
That's your local?
That's where I worked. Yeah, that was like my first job.
Because I've been to multiple SEIU marches in Dade and Broward, and that's by far huge. Like, that's huge. I mean, for down here, it's usually, 25 people outside of a McDonald's or, whatever we get. But that was really cool.
No, that was in the thousands. And I think Jen always breaks my chops because I'm in commercial real estate, but I will tell you, I tell people all the time, if you think you can eat money and drink oil, you're nuts, because you can't. And if people cannot afford to rent your property, then you don't have an investment. You're just holding a bag. And this is becoming a problem in South Florida as we speak. I know people that are hanging on for dear life on investments that are not worth anything anymore. Because it's sort of, this is an illusion of a free market. We don't have that. What we have is a broken system. And your system is only as good as the labor force that you have. And the labor force in this country has been taking every body blow known to man for the past 40 plus years. And it comes from all sides. And so when you see just one city with, let's just say 4,000 people were out in the street, that's a real protest. I don't want to take away from what other people like to protest, but when you get out in the street and you just hold up a sign because you hate Donald Trump, that doesn't do anything. But
I mean, at the end of the
thing, every time people go to a protest and connect with others who agree with them, they kind of realize like the personal is political, and they start realizing that the issues they experience are bigger than themselves, and they get fired up. And yeah, like, I hear you that we need more to really radically change this country, but we also have to meet people where they're at. And
I've always said this, like, to me, the marches, depending on who's behind them, who's doing them, like what their intent is, are extremely important to build coalition and to get people involved. So no, I don't think anything necessarily directly comes from the march, but if that builds the bigger snowball, then that's the point of it. So that's what it does, is it's solidarity, and that I understand. When it's the case of people like Bernie and AOC, I find it nefarious. I find it sheepdogging us away from where we need to be, and at this point working against us. So rallies and marches are good when it's righteous, and then it's great. But I think that the real, I guess, power has to be economic. The real power has to be shutting shit down. And that's where the whole boycott and divestment and people not working. And that is really the only language that will speak to them.
And the fear of not taking that next step, that is always going to be that point of no return. I'm sure you've been paying close attention to even the little bit of push that David Hogue has been attempting to make within the Democratic Party establishment. But the truth is, he's not doing anything, because he will not go after Pelosi and he will not go after Jeffries. So if the goal here is to just kind of tweak around the edges, that's not really going to solve the problem. The problem is that we're the only developed nation on earth that does not have a single-payer healthcare system. We also do not have a living wage. We do not have proper collective bargaining. We have right to work laws, for God's sake. I mean, it's past the point of no return, because now it just seems to be on full display, especially with Trump. I would say the greatest gift that Trump gives us is that he doesn't hide anything. He just puts it right out there in the open, and people know exactly what's going on. That's always been the oligarchy's biggest knock on him. It's not that he's not one of them. He most certainly is, but he does not protect empire the way others do. And so now I think a lot of these people who perhaps weren't on board with Bernie and even AOC in their message, let's say, even 4 years ago, are like looking around saying, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we should have been listening and realizing that this thing is getting really bad. But we have to get very serious about what our intentions are. And I think what you're doing, Eliza, is immensely important, because the one thing Bernie has done that I think is the greatest failure of the so-called oligarchy rally tour that he's going on right now, when he's been pressed and asked constantly, what is your mission? Well, we're going to get to that. We'll think about what that message is going to be. And
oh God, that's an amazing impression.
He does several really good ones. Bernie's one of them.
You're doing a good job out there. But for the American people, we have to make a decision what we want to do. Well, Bernie, you can still be that guy, but you have to be that guy. You cannot be a halfway revolutionary. You have to say, this is why and I know you know this, because if you're in LA and you've been doing this, you probably were on both campaigns. There is a complete distinction between the first run in 2015, 2016, and the second run. Because when he was running that first time, and he was doing those rallies, when he was really getting 15, 20,000 people showing up, he was saying, I think the people here want a political revolution. Well, Bernie, if you really believed in that language then, you really need to believe in it now, because that's what the American people need. And this is coming from somebody who, I mean, I've worked my ass off to make something of myself in this broken economic system, but I'm not stupid. It's so obvious that this system is a failure and that we need to change it.
Because why? It's a failure because
the people who control it like it this way.
But it's a capitalism problem. You have such a hard time with that.
I didn't say capitalism wasn't a problem. I've been very clear that it is.
Okay.
I know it is.
It's a problem.